What's up, guys? My name is Johan Lund, and today I'm checking out the new amp sim, the Fredhead by Fredman Digital. Both studio Fredman and producer Fredrik Nordström are legends in the metal community, with countless and countless of metal classics coming through the studio, and albums being done today that will probably be considered classics in 20-30 years from now. So I was really excited when they announced that they were releasing a brand new amp sim that would capture the Fredman sound. So for this demo, I'm going to show you the features of the plugin, and I'm also going to show you how easy it is to get a brutal fat tone in just a couple of seconds. So let's check it out. And the signal chain for this demo, I'm using my 6-string Solar guitars with a Baritone neck, Duncan Solar pickups and an Evertune bridge, and the tuning is drop F sharp. Yeah, so I have my session loaded up here, and we're starting off with 2 main rhythm guitars, one left and one right, and I have an instance of the Fredhead loaded up on each individual track. I'll go through all these settings just in a couple of seconds. Next up we have the 2 intro guitars, and they are routed to a guitar bus with an instance of the Fredhead inserted on that track, and I'll go through how I got the tones from that intro just by using the Fredhead itself. And the next guitar is the solo part, where I also have an instance of the Fredhead engaged with Waves H delay at the end of it for some ambience. And lastly we have program bass and program drums. The bass is programmed by Submission Audio Djinn bass with some minor EQ moves and some limiting. And the drums are Get Good Drums One Kit Wonder Metal with one of their presets and just some light clipping. Other than that, we have no further processing on the guitars themselves. The only thing I have for volume-wise is the Flatline plugin from Submission Audio, which is an awesome clipper if you want to crank up the gain on your masters without damaging the material. Yeah, so this is how it looks when you load it up. And the Fredhead is a 2-channel amp sim with really easy to use controls down here. And starting off from left to right, the clean button here disengages the distortion part of the amp. Gives you a really nice clean sound. It sounds like this. And the distortion part sounds like this. So moving on, we have the gate, which is pretty self-explanatory. The more you have the gate down here, the more the signal passes through, which is really awesome to have if you have nice cleans or like lead parts or something like that. Or if you crank it, you get those awesome genty chugs if you're into that. So really silent in between, and compared to if you have it off. So it goes silent. And moving on, we have the Twang Knob here, which acts like your basic tube screamer in some ways. Since it's before the gain, The less you have the shog knob engaged, the more clean low end comes to the gain structure. So you get a more clean distortion in the low end. And the more you crank it up, the more bloomy distortion, more shugginess you get to the sound, hence the name. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. That's somewhat of a slight difference there, but I think it's noticeable, especially if you put it in a mix. I really noticed the difference when you crank the shug, vice versa if you have it down here. Next up is a tone knob, and that shapes the mid-high frequencies of your tone, and the more you crank it, the more clarity you get out of the strings. So let's take a listen to how that sounds. Yeah, so that's a quite noticeable difference actually. Next up we have the twang knob, which shapes the very high end of the tone and gives you more or less attack if you crank it or not. So let's take a listen to how that sounds, starting off with it off. And let's crank it. Yeah, so that's really audible as well. Gives it a nice twang, hence the name. And next up is the gain. It's pretty self-explanatory there as well. More or less gain, basically. And the bias knob that comes up next emulates DC voltage irregularities in the signal and smooths out harsh tones to give you a more analog and warm, smooth sound. It's not as big of a difference as the other knobs here, but I'll let you hear how that sounds with it off and have it cranked as well. So let's take a listen. It's not a night and day difference, but I can agree it gives a bit more warmth to the tone if you crank it. And next up is a 3-band EQ section, low, mid, and high, which comes after the gain structure, but before the cabinet simulation. And they sound like this individually. Low end first. Pretty meaty low end there. Mid. And high. That's pretty high end. And after that we have a presence knob. And lastly, we have the post gain knob, which acts like a master volume for the entire amp, and it sounds like this. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. And in the top left corner here, you have the IRs that you have to choose from. And they are engineered by Fredrik Nordström himself using high-end quality gear, both in the capturing method and also cabinets and the other gear that he's been using. So they sound really good. So let's just check out how they sound. I'm going to put a loop from my demo track here and just flick through them, and you can hear how they sound. So let's check it out. Yeah, so they sound really good. The double V2 is my personal favorite, and that's the cabinet that was used in the demo track in the beginning. Yeah, so that's how this amp sim is set up. And as I said, it's really easy to get a brutal thick tone by just turning some knobs here and choosing the right IR. And of course, you can turn off the cab simulation if you want to use your own third-party IRs. But I'm just gonna go through how I got the intro guitars just by using the amp sim itself. And I've got the 2 DI tracks here just sent to a guitar bus over here, and with the one instance of the Fredhead engaged here. And without the Fredhead, it sounds like this. As you can hear, just a DI track. And what I did was I engaged the Fredhead here and turned down both the low, mids, and highs and the presence. And otherwise, I used the same cab IR and the same settings as the normal rhythm guitars here. And so they turned out like this. Yeah, so that's a really easy way to get that classic telephoned EQ tone. And it's really nice to have in an intro like I had it, or maybe before a breakdown or something like that. Yeah, so that was my demo of the Fredhead amp sim by Fredman Digital. I can't wait to see what this company does next. And as always, if you want to support me, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a new video. Leave a thumbs up for this video, it really matters to me. And thanks so much for watching. And until the next video, see you later.